Hammond.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I'm a scientist, and for the last 20 years, I've been conducting research on the impact of product labeling and warnings in tobacco, food, and most recently cannabis. And in addition, for the past 8 months, we've been monitoring cannabis products and prices available through hundreds of illicit retail outlets in Canada. Just so you know, I accept no industry funding, and I don't represent any organization for or against cannabis legalization. So I'm going to talk about three things today. One is restrictions on marketing, the second one is health warning, and the third is product labeling. And of all the areas covered in the Act, I would suggest that marketing promotion can have the biggest impact on who uses, what types of products are used, and for what reason. And the marketing restrictions, as you know, that are proposed in the Act are modeled on those for tobacco products in Canada. And like tobacco legislation, the Act seeks a balance between allowing product information to reach adult consumers while prohibiting marketing that promotes use, especially to young people. In terms of how to accomplish this balance, I'd like to touch upon some of the lessons that we've learned with tobacco marketing over many decades. And the first lesson is that branding has the greatest impact on young people, those whom the Act seeks to protect. The second lesson is that limited marketing restrictions have limited effectiveness. So when most traditional forms of tobacco ads were prohibited, marketing expenditures didn't stop. They simply shift to other channels, including and particularly packaging and the retail environment. And for this reason, that's why we have Bill S5, which requires plain packaging for tobacco products, which received royal assent just last week. Now, plain packaging is an effective public health measure. Not only does it reduce the promotional appeal to young people, it also enhances the effect of health warnings. And if the government were to pursue its cannabis objectives without plain packaging, it would find itself with the responsibility to police thousands of individual packages to ensure that the brand imagery doesn't increase appeal among youth or promote a positive lifestyle. That's not only intensive and resource intensive and difficult, but it proved ineffective for tobacco products, as it almost certainly would for cannabis. The third lesson from tobacco is that once marketing and promotion is allowed, it's very difficult to scale it back through regulation or new legislation. Consider that it's taken 50 years up until royal assent of S5 last week, and multiple legal challenges for Canada to achieve the current restrictions on tobacco marketing. It's much harder to restrict marketing after it's been allowed than it is to loosen restrictions over time. And once it's been allowed, the effective marketing can persist long after its removal. In short, it's very difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. And I think it's worth noting for those of you that have been following the media that several cannabis companies have already gone on record stating that they intend to stretch the existing regulations as far as possible through things like augmented reality technology and brand stretching for other consumer products. The fourth lesson is that the removal of branding does not promote illegal or contraband sales. Now, testimony to other committees has suggested that restricting cannabis branding would make it more difficult for consumers to distinguish between illegal and legal products. That is simply not accurate. In fact, the opposite is true. Cannabis products acquired through legal retail outlets will be clearly distinguished by health warnings and other labeling requirements. If you've seen the images of what's proposed, I think you'll agree with me. It's simply not credible to associate reduced branding with an advantage for illicit products. The same argument has been made by tobacco companies to oppose plain packaging laws, and this argument has been refuted in multiple legal rulings, including several cases in which I've testified. So overall, if the government wishes to present lifestyle advertising and promotion to young people, the Act must include plain packaging. I briefly want to talk about health warnings, which are another essential component of labeling policies. We've done work, and most Canadians, most youth, are uncertain about the risks of these products, and they actually want this information. Health warnings are the most cost-effective, self-sustaining way of communicating with Canadians about cannabis. And the 6 primary messages that have been proposed in the proposed regulations, I would suggest represent important harm reduction messages. I would also suggest that warnings are a chance to provide support for addiction. In Canada, for example, every single cigarette pack includes a telephone helpline number and a website for Canadians that wish to quit. We have evaluated it and it works. And I would urge the government to display the same services on cannabis package to demonstrate its commitment to reducing addiction. And lastly, I'd like to speak briefly about labeling on product contents and dose. There's strong consensus that THC levels, the numbers should be displayed on packages, but we can't simply rely on providing numbers to consumers. I would ask the committee how many people intuitively understand what 40 milligrams of THC means. Is that a little? Is that a lot? We just asked 1,000 Canadians, and even most regular users don't know the numbers well. And you might also know that Canada is about to start using high symbols on food packages for sodium, sugar, and saturated fat. And they're doing this because it's easier for consumers to understand and use. The same principles should apply to cannabis labeling. If it's important enough for canned soup and sugary drinks, it's important enough for cannabis products. And the THC and dose labeling should be reflected in the actual packaging. When edibles are eventually sold, each dose should be individually packaged. So think about different packs of gum where you push them out of the cellophane, which is a requirement in at least one U.S. state. So overall, I'll conclude by saying that I think the public health impact of cannabis will be determined not whether it's legalized, but how it's regulated in a legal market. And comprehensive restrictions on advertising, marketing, and promotion should be given precedence. Overall, I think these measures will demonstrate the government's commitment to ensuring that cannabis legalization benefits public health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Hammond.